You're tuned in, tuned up, and ready to go. Welcome to Ria's Ham Shack, a weekly conversation about amateur radio, shortwave listening, and radio tech, hosted by Ria Gyro, N2RJ, and heard weekly on WRMI Legends Shortwave. And now, here's your host, Ria.
Well, thank you, Jeff Lawrence, and welcome to Friday. Yes, it's Friday, right here on the fabulous WRMI Legends. I am Ria, my call sign N2RJ, and you are listening to Ria's Ham Shack. Of course, this show is brought to you weekly on WRMI Legends, and we have to thank the fabulous crew at WRMI Legends, everybody, Ted Randall, Holly, and we have Jeff Lawrence, who did the new intro, and of course Jeff White and the entire staff at WRMI who keep the station running and keep the 100,000 watts going. Of course, you can listen to the show on 5050. If you're not listening on shortwave, why don't you tune in? You know, there's a lot of great programming right here on 5050 on the WRMI Legends. And you know, some of it is very, very unique radio that you might have probably grown up with, and some of it you might not have experienced before. I know I've kind of like relived like some of the way that radio used to be, and you know, it's very nice to listen to it on international shortwave. So give it a listen if you're not listening on the shortwave. We're here at 5 p.m. Central every Friday, and of course 6 p.m. Eastern. And we did change the clocks back last weekend, so we shifted in UTC, so where we shifted forward 1 hour, so we start a little bit earlier. So yeah, all right, well, this week I'm going to talk about why we did this change and also some of the new things coming up. Of course, I'll take your questions and answers, and I'll talk about the news, and I'll offer a few little tidbits about ham radio and other radio related things, shortwave listening, whatever suits your fancy. You know, radio is a big space, and we are very proud to be part of radio, you know, and radio is our thing. We will be right back. So in case you didn't know, Ria's Ham Shack is on YouTube, and you can go to youtube.com/@N2RJ. That's a YouTube channel where you can find a lot of great video content that's a companion to this radio show. You'll find the weekly Live with Ria streams. You'll find my general class licensing videos. You'll also find other interesting videos, news, tips, tricks, and how to get the most out of your amateur radio and other types of radio. I talk about GMRS, I talk about FRS, I talk about MERS, CB radio, whatever kind of radio. Even I talk about the FCC and the FAA and the kind of trouble they're getting into, okay, right here on Ria's Ham Shack. Yes, we are Ria's Ham Shack. youtube.com/@N2RJ, youtube.com/@N2RJ. Okay, well, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is why I changed the name of this fabulous radio show. And you know, it's quite an interesting story. So first of all, to begin with, there are a number of people who already call on my show, well, my YouTube channel, Ria's Ham Shack, and you know, I didn't really think much of it, but it was kind of catchy. I was talking with Ted Randall actually about you know, what we want to do, some ideas, and how to get things going. You know, because WRMI Legends is a pretty great resource, I think, and a lot of times I just turn it on and I listen to the music. I listen to the fun commentary about various things, of course. You know what I'm talking about, right? And I also like to listen to fabulous radio programming, and you know, radio has this type of programming you have on the Legends. It has a soul. You know, it's not like where you go on the internet and you see a lot of things, but you know, radio has a heart and soul. Okay, and that's why I love the radio medium so much. even though, you go on social media and you make a video and you go viral and you have everybody sharing and liking and subscribing, or you go on Instagram and you post a selfie. Oh my, yeah, I do that sometimes. But in all seriousness, I tell you, so Ted thought that, it sounds catchy, I think. And I after going over it in my mind a few times, I put a poll out to the people because I want you, the audience, to help me decide, okay? Because in the end, if you don't like what I'm laying down, why am I doing this? I want to definitely have something that you guys will enjoy. And speaking of which, I've been getting quite a few good comments about the show. People have been talking about it. They listen either on the air or on the podcast. Both are great ways to listen. I try to listen on air every week because it's a good, it's a good throwback, and you have a lot of, quite frankly, a lot of different, I wouldn't call them threats. It's just the world is changing, and not all change is good. Change is good, but sometimes you want to relive the olden and golden days of radio. And me as a younger person, kind of like, I grew up in like shortwave in like the 90s and the 1980s and such like that. So I'm not like a very, very, how should I put it? Like, I'm not from like back in like the 60s or 50s and 70s when things were really rocking. I kind of caught the tail end of it, but it was still pretty magical to listen to the magic of radio. And this is where you come in. I mean, WRMI Legends is a great resource, and I couldn't do it without them. So, if you want to support the show, definitely you go on to WRMILegends.com and you see ways to support the show. But also, think about the kind of audience you're reaching here. There are a lot of people who, within the ham radio community, could benefit from this, and they could it's definitely reaching a wider audience. So if you offer some type of business or service and you want to advertise on here, you could reach out to WRMI Legends. You could reach out to Ted and Holly and have them put an ad spot for you. I don't control that, of course, but I think it's a great way to get the message out. Shortwave radio is one of those things that is worldwide, and it reaches out to a lot of people who normally might be facing censorship of their media, especially in places like Ukraine and other places. I was talking with Lauren Libby. He is the president of TWR, and he was explaining some of the challenges he had in delivering the message over shortwave, because some governments view this whole shortwave thing as a very subversive medium, meaning that it's a threat to them. Speaking of threats, the NTIA, our fabulous government here in the United States, has been talking about spectrum, and they've actually published some things in the Federal Register. He has been the government has been really looking to plan for spectrum. It probably means they plan to take spectrum, in all honesty, and repurpose it and sell it to the highest bidder. But we need to make sure that we're represented, and we get our concerns heard, because if we don't have any spectrum, we don't have ham radio. But this also begins with using the spectrum we have, and I go back to saying that because I've said it over and over. You use it, or you lose it, and if you don't use it, you will lose it. And I definitely think that we need to be using the spectrum, get on the air, not only in HF bands. I've been exploring a lot of the higher bands. I've been exploring some 2 meters, 70 centimeters, 1.2 gigahertz, which is under threat, by the way. But I'll read you this document from the Federal Register where the NTIA and Information Administration, the NTIA, National Telecommunications and Information Administration, will hold 2 public listening sessions to assist in the preparation of a national spectrum strategy for the United States. And NTIA is seeking input from the public as it develops a strategy that identifies the actions needed to maximize the potential of our nation's spectrum resources. Access to spectrum contributes to technological innovation and economic growth and is critical to national security, public safety, and other national priorities. The agendas and other information regarding the events will be posted at ntia.gov, and the dates they will be having on Thursday, March 30th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and April 11 from 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. They will be held at the Yates Auditorium at the Department of the Interior in Washington, D.C., and they will hold another one at the Patricia George DeSeo Theater at the Bartolo Performing Arts Center and University of Notre Dame in Notre Dame. I grew up pronouncing it Notre Dame, but Notre Dame 100 Performing Arts Center, Notre Dame, Indiana. So, yes. So it's going to be, people are going to be there. I'm hoping that our interests in amateur radio are going to be represented by somebody. Maybe the ARL. Who knows? I'm hoping, that we get ahead of this, but there has to be some meaningful strategy for us to be using spectrum. I mean, we have to put forth a good use case, I think, and I think that emergency communications is one good use case, and there's also the experimentation with teaching the next generation of radio amateurs all sorts of new digital communications and also analog communications and investigating radio propagation. I go back to people who doing great research like Dr. Nathaniel Frizzell, W2NAF, who's doing solar terrestrial research at the University of Scranton, and various others who are doing things. So all right, so that is my rant, so to speak. And Ria's Ham Shack, okay? Ria's Ham Shack. If you love the name, let me know. If you hate it, let me know too. Ria at n2rj.com. All right, let's break and come back with the news. So, one of the great things about having an HF radio is the ability to work DX. But you need to know where you can find this DX, and you can actually find all the latest news, tips, tricks, scuttlebutt, and on-the-scene reports at dx-world.net. That's dx-world.net. My friend Call and his fabulous crew of correspondents bring you all the latest DX news from around the world right into your ham shack. Okay, so check out dx-world.net, and they also supply the news here on Ria's Ham Shack. So if you want to get the source of the news, you go to dx-world.net. That's dx-world.net. So we love Dayton Hamvention. It's one of the premier ham radio events in the entire world, I think. And I've been to a few ham fests, and Dayton Hamvention pretty much is it. So Ron Kramer, KD8ENJ, and this one's from the ARRL. He passed away on Saturday, March 11th, and he was the vice president of DARA, the Dayton Amateur Radio Association, and he also served as president. He was the general chairman of Hamvention from 2017 to 2018, and he helped successfully move the event from the Hara Arena to Greene County Fairgrounds, where it is at Xenia, after 52 years. So it was really, really a huge loss here. I will tell you stories at Hara Arena. I mean, Hara Arena, apart from the incident with the how should I put it, the fecal volcano, okay, that they had. They had other issues, but Harrow was kind of magical, right? I used to enjoy the trek to Trotwood, and the flea market, was as a sight to behold. All sorts of old junk that is one man's trash is another man's treasure. And I also, by the way, I've never understood why hams would buy old traffic lights until I saw it at a microwave event. But anyway, so this person, it was a very hard task to move from Harrow Arena to a new location. And of course, Ron, it's a huge loss in the amateur community. It's really, really tough when we lose these stalwarts. But rest in peace, my friend. 73 to you. And really hoping to see you guys at Dayton Hamvention this year. I will be there, of course. And, I will be there. I might go rogue. Go rogue meaning I might not go with any organization. I might just go by myself. All right. So, speaking of Hamfest, actually, I'm a member of the RSGB, and they sent out a notice about the National Hamfest that's held in the UK, and they apparently decided to cancel. So I wanted to kind of go. They said that, but then they said they would cancel. So from the RSGB, they said it's with a sad heart that we unfortunately have to advise that the National Hamfest team will reluctantly have to cancel the 2023 National Hamfest event. Unfortunately, we've been hit with several curveballs this year. Firstly, our temporary move to Peterborough in October was cancelled by the venue themselves, which has meant finding a new venue or a new date. A new venue has proved impossible to find at short notice. We've negotiated some revised dates in July at Newark. That's Newark in England, not New Jersey. But after many discussions, we have reached the conclusion that the school holidays and the like were a problem for traders big and small. We are also unsure how many of the attendees would also be unable to attend for the same reasons. Finally, we looked at the financial impact and concluded it was not viable to run the event with the reduced trade attendees and a risk of reduced footfall. I can assure you all, we haven't made this decision lightly. However, we are pleased to confirm that we hope to put on a bigger event in 2024 at the Newark Showground on our more usual dates of the 27th and 28th of September. Please put the date in your diary. That's calendar. Now, and we hope to see you there. Okay. Well, that's unfortunate, but I'm glad they're doing it next year. I renewed my passport, so I've been itching to go somewhere, I'm telling you, but it's unfortunate. But hey, they're they seem to have some plans for the future, so we wish them well. So let's shift to DX, and we get our news from dx-world.net. But this one flashed across my social media, where Emir, he's E77DX. He is going to be active from São Vicente Island in Cape Verde as D4DX starting on March 22nd. And he'll be participating in the CQ Worldwide WPX SSB contest. That's a phone contest in single operator all band. He's QSL via his home call. So that's the one to look out to. I mean, Cape Verde is kind of active, but it's always nice to get a new one. Then you have the South Cooks E51CIK and E51WEG. The South Cook Islands, April 13th to 18, 2023. They're active on 40 to 10 meters. They have amplifiers, vertical dipole arrays, loops. Cook Islands, self-governing islands, and a state in free association with New Zealand, located in the South Pacific Ocean. Okay. There's one in Niue at March 26th to April 9th. It's going to be active from Niue. So that's Yanis, SP9 FIH, and Leshik. I'm totally butchering their names. I'm sorry, but I have to find out. SP6 CIK to be active from Niue. Previously, E6AF was active in 2019 by SP9 FIH. And SP6 CIK has requested a call sign, which you will know soon, possibly E6CI. Okay, great. Then the IOTA Most Wanted list has been expanded. So now they show a number of them by country prefix order. The IOTA Islands on the Air program run by the RSGB. They have the column showing the percentage of record holders who've updated in 5 years since February 2018, 10 years since February 2013, and all time in the standard HF category since they were licensed. Okay. Always good stuff in IOTA program. Then you have HK0, the expedition from San Andres Island. They will be on 80 to 6 meters. There are a bunch of them, bunch of Brazilians operating from HK0 San Andres Island. And that will be from May 4th to 11th. All right. CY0S Sable Island. So Sable Island, they're still on track, and all the radio gear and antennas and personal gear has been packed, ready for transport to Halifax, Nova Scotia. And the team will continue to make preparations. Sable Aviation was able to fly to the island recently on a supply run. This is very good news, as it means there was enough usable beach to land a vintage Britain Norman Islander aircraft. We all hope the beach landing area remains dry and that there are no storms in the next 10 days. Any storm has the potential to flood the landing area. The team is approaching 95% of its fundraising goal, and you can check out all the sponsors at cy0s.com. Very good. I think I need them on one band. I'm not really sure which one, to be honest. Sable Island, but is one I've worked before. Might be 12 meters, to be honest. I'm looking it up here on my club log. Sable Island. They have a lot of wild horses on that island too. And Sable Island, I need them. No, I need them on a number of bands. Okay. So I will definitely be working them. All good stuff. All right. So those of you who work in the Crozet Island, the Expedition FT8WW, they're now Theory is basically packed up and shut down because his authorization expired. So he is done. And it's very good, the expedition. I mean, it's nice that, we got him. It was a brand new country for me. Number 327 for me. 329, including deleted. So I have 327 current countries on the DXCC list. And I'm very happy for that. So I'm happy that I was able to work them. And so he made about 50,000 contacts on HF and about 1,300 on the QO100 geostationary satellite. The geomagnetic measurement was very late, so Terry had to close down earlier than anticipated, and his last log was uploaded. And of course, he's talking about QSL, and the QSLs will come soon. Weston Kiribati, T30UN. So Dom 3Z9DX, he's going to be there. The Rebel DX group, the expedition to Tarawa. And then they're doing some final preparations for Western Kiribati. Okay, 2 CW operators, 1 SSP, and 7 FT8 stations. So this is going to be an FT8D expedition for sure. Going to be a lot of FT8 on there. Okay. There's one guy, this guy, he's Greek, he's from Dodecanese. He calls FT8 funny transmission mode. I don't know. Haters gonna hate, okay? You have Guadalupe TO1Q. So Jean-Luc F1ULQ will again be active from Guadeloupe. And he's going to be at FG8 OJ's station starting on March 20th for 2 weeks. He's going to be active on HF band, 6 meters, single sideband FT8. You have VK9NT and VJ9N, Norfolk Island. They're coming. All systems go. And they're going to be doing there. Then you have OJ0/LB5SH and others on Market Reef. Market Reef is a destination. I know like Marty Lane has been going there. So LB5SH along with Bjorn LA1UW, Tor LA3WAA, and Christopher LB0VG will be active from Market Reef during May 20th to 27. And more info at their websites. OJ0/LA1UW, and then you have LA3WAA, LB5SH, and LB0VG, the Market Reef. Okay. Then you have Vanuatu. They're having QSLs, YJ08, they're having QSLs printed. Then you have C6AJB, the Bahamas. That's happening. Steve KG4LJB is going to be from the Bahamas. By the way, my friend and the president of the RAC, Phil McBride, VA3QR, he's now operating from Panama. So look for him on the HF bands. Of course, it's a holiday style expedition for him. So there's a lot more DX. You can check it out at dx-world.net, where they have all the latest DX news. All right, let's shift some gears a little bit. I mean, youth is a huge thing in amateur radio. So there's going to be the YOTA summer camp is in Hungary. The applications are open to be part of the RSGB team going to the Youngsters on the Air YOTA summer camp in Hungary. It's going to be from 5 to 12 August 2023. And young RSGB members, their chance in a lifetime to represent their country and national society. You could be a team member if you're aged between 15 and 25, or a team leader if you're aged between 18 and 30. And they, of course, would love to hear from you. You can email youth.champion@rsgb.org.uk. And the youth champion is Liam Robbins, G5LDR. Definitely good stuff for YOTA. And YOTA is one of those things that really does good for youth. And we need the youth in the hobby. We need the young people, because the young people are going to be around to continue ham radio. And, I want to see the young people succeed. And, it brings such joy and such energy. St. Patrick's Day. Hey, today is St. Patrick's Day, right? I almost forgot. It's St. Patrick's Day. So there's a St. Patrick's Day award event. It's going to be taking place over a 48-hour period from 1200 UTC on 16 March 2023 to 1200 UTC on 18 March 2023 to allow worldwide participation in all time zones. The St. Patrick's Day Award is 48 hours of non-competitive fun. Everyone can participate in an event, whether they're licensed or not. You can register for the station. You could complete a short registration form at www.stpatricksaward.com/register-a-station. So that's a St. Patrick's Day, St. Patty's Day. In the New York and New Jersey area, there's a lot of celebration with St. Patrick's Day. They have like parades. They have, you get your corned beef and cabbage, and you get a lot of the pubs, of course, are packed, right? The Irish pubs, and people, it's strange how somebody who was like a missionary suddenly became like a American drinking holiday, but it is what it is. But yeah, so you can work the St. Patrick's Day Award event. The RSGB is looking for a company secretary. So this is from the RSGB, and they're looking to a voluntary position of company secretary, and the person plays a key role in society's governance and vital support in the running of the board meetings and the AGM. You can go on the RSGB website, rsgb.org, and you can look out for the position. Okay, so yeah, it's been a lot of great news from the RSGB here in Britain. They're a fine organization. I actually ordered a couple books from them too. They're pretty great. And finally, congratulations to Sabrina Herman, who has now been appointed as the new editor. Well, not the editor, the new associate editor of CQ Magazine. Best wishes to them, and wish them all best success. All right, so that has been the news, and now we'll take a break and come right back with your Q&A. So all the ways you can listen to Ria's Ham Shack. Yes, you can listen right here on WRMI Legends 5050, shortwave wholesome AM shortwave radio, 5050, Fridays at 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern, and the show always airs first. You can also find it on the podcast. You can look wherever you find your favorite podcasts. I'm going to be updating all the links to Ria's Ham Shack, but you can look for Ria's Shack Ham Radio. We're going to change it up. Ria's Ham Shack podcast, right? And of course, you can listen on WRMILegends.com when the show is airing at 5 p.m. on Fridays, Central, 6 p.m. Eastern. So our first question has to do with cable television interference. And, back in Trinidad, my friend 9Y4SP had a problem where he would break in to the neighbor's cable TV on, I think it was channel 14 on cable. And that was unfortunate because, well, it probably was fortunate because that channel was CNN. So he was saving them from CNN, okay? Yeah. But I think back then CNN actually carried actual news. But anyway, we had problems with the breakthrough into the cable system. And in cable's TV system, there's supposed to be a closed loop, right? They have cable that you're not supposed to really hear anything from the outside, or outside signals are not supposed to get in, and vice versa. Cable's not supposed to have leakage. It's actually to the point where the FCC mandates that you have flyovers, you have a company conduct a flyover with an aircraft to determine whether there is cable signal leakage. And this must be done, and the reports are actually published by the cable TV companies, by the way. So one thing you need to be aware of is that a lot of it depends on the quality of your coax, right? And, and I'm not talking about your ham coax. I'm talking about the cable TV coax. So the cable TV coax, generally some of them are designed for off-air antennas and they're not properly shielded. And then you have some that are shielded properly for cable TV. So generally, you want the best shielded coax possible. I mean, if you're doing your own cable wiring, this is why I recommend that people, let the cable company do the wiring, because then they're responsible for it and they have to fix it. And they have all the proper tools and everything to determine if a cable is defective or not. So there are a few things to look out for. If you use good quality quad shielded cable that has the foil shield in addition to the wire braid, that will be a lot less susceptible to interference. The other thing that you need to do is make sure that your connectors are crimped, or use compression connectors. I love compression connectors. They're better. They provide a more secure connection. Those will help. Between those two things and making sure that your system's well grounded as well too, and also making sure that your cable wiring is far from your ham antennas, you should have as few problems as possible. So that's one way to solve cable TV interference. And today, of course, you have like digital cables, so it's always digital cables always not going to provide the same kind of interference as there was before. All right, so there is this question from Ham Radio / New to the Hobby group. What's the best part of upgrading a license and gaining access to more bands? There's always someone to make contact with. Never know who you're going to get. So the best part of upgrading your license, and right now I'm doing the general class license courses, the good part about getting your general is you get on HF, right? And HF always has somebody to talk to, whereas on VHF, UHF, you have to see if the same 5 guys on a repeater are going to talk to you, okay? But, repeaters are good, but I like the local repeaters. But HF, there's always somebody to talk to. The other good thing about upgrading your license is that if you upgrade all the way to extra in the US or in your home country, if you're listening in another country, like many of you are, and you want to upgrade your license to the highest, is you probably don't ever have to worry about taking another test ever again. And when you have the highest class license, this is one of the reasons why I went for extra. I just did not want to deal with taking another exam again, because I just didn't want to deal with it. But some countries only have one class of amateur radio license called an amateur radio license, so to speak, right? And you don't have to worry about that. You get it once and you're good for life. But, some people are perfectly happy with keeping their old license class, like especially the US advanced licensees. They don't really see the need to upgrade because the little bit they get from going to extra kind of like is not really worth getting rid of a license that's listed as advanced. Okay, so that's always something good. But I knew I always know that there are people who even kept like their novice license, like Patti Loveless, the country singer. She kept her novice license for years, and until she canceled her license, of course, because she's no longer a ham. But yeah, that was pretty wild. There are people who keep their novice license. There are people who keep their tech, general, and of course, once you go to extra, you're not going back. So anyway, let's shift gears a little bit. There's a question here about one person, Jim here, wants to get an ICOM 7300 and an ICOM 9700. Is there a good dual purpose antenna that'll serve both? The answer is no, but I'll explain why. So the reason it's no is because antennas for HF tend to be vastly different in terms of size than antennas for VHF, UHF. And the antennas for VHF, UHF are a lot smaller than the antennas for HF, So I don't see any way that you can have an antenna that'll be good for the ICOM 7300 that'll also be good for the ICOM 9700, because the 9700 is a VHF, UHF radio. They're good side by side, they're paired well together, good radios, but you need separate antennas for them. And you could probably use the same coax if you use a splitter or something like that, because they're far apart that you might not even need a filter to filter them out, to be honest. But you definitely that'll not be the most efficient setup. So I really recommend that you put a separate antenna on both and enjoy both radios. Now, for mobile antennas, there have been some attempts to kind of have some HF bands along with VHF, UHF. Like I had an antenna for the what was a quad band radio that had 10 meters, 6 meters, 2 meters, and 70 centimeters. And this was a Yaesu 8900. So there's an antenna that had those 4 bands on them, and it was a mobile antenna. It worked. It looked a little ugly, but it worked. But I don't think you could definitely have an antenna for 20 meters. You could probably have it. It won't be optimal at all. You have one for 20 meters and 40 meters, and then 2 meters is just too much. Stepper antennas actually makes like a set of passive 6-meter elements for their HF beams. So you put that on, and then you tune up the antenna to 6 meters. And then, of course, those extra elements help provide some extra gain and directivity, so they help you receive weaker signals. But me personally, I would rather have a separate 6-meter antenna. And I do have a 5-element loop fed array, LFA, which is a phenomenal 6-meter antenna. It's made by G0KSC. What's his design? I don't know if he made Innova antennas. I don't know if he made it, but it's a phenomenal design. And it's very low noise because you have that loop on the driven element. So another question, how many watts are you using on mobile? I'm using 25 and it seems to be working well. Well, I'm glad you asked because I love QRO. I love high power. I love burning up the airwaves, okay? And I love high power. Although, the FCC is going to say, well, use the minimum power required to maintain communications. Minimum power necessary. Okay, so I will listen to you, Uncle Charlie. But I will tell you that on mobile, I prefer to have a 50-watt radio at my disposal because 50 watts is kind of where, you won't need it. You won't appreciate it until you need it. And maybe sometime you might need it where you're in a area with poor signal coverage of the repeater. But you can put the extra watts in, and those extra watts will give you an edge that you didn't have before. And will give you an edge, and you're able to reach further into the repeater. You could deal with some of the phenomena such as picket fencing, and picket fencing is when the signal just rapidly goes in and out and flutters because you're essentially passing by some objects that are blocking the signals periodically. And it's always good to have extra power to overcome that. But 25 watts is doable. I've done mobile with 5 watts. I've used a handheld radio in a mobile. I just connected to an external antenna or hooked up a speaker mic, and that was it. But you can get away with a little bit of power, or you could do a lot of power. So I recommend a 50-watt radio. If you have 25 watts, it'll be kind of okay, but I really recommend a 50-watt radio. 35 watts on UHF, 70 centimeters, you can have less power. And here's another question here. I have a technician license. Can I get on HF? And the answer, believe it or not, is yes, you can. But there is a catch. Of course, there is always a catch, right? You can get on HF. You just can't get on like 20 meters. You can get on 40 meters Morse code. You can't get on 40 meters voice. At least not yet, anyway. You can get on 80 meters. You can get on, let's see here, 80, 40, and 15 meters. You can't get on 20 meters. You can't get on 30 meters. You can't get on those other bands. And the privileges were expanded some years ago. So essentially you have the same Morse code privileges that general class licensees have. You just don't have the voice or digital privileges. So you can do that. But yeah, and of course, during the high point of the solar cycle, you can get on 10 meters and you can work DX worldwide. Go out, check out DX World, dx-world.net, and then you get on 10 meters and operate. It's always fun seeing technicians get on 10 meters. It's nice to see them use that part of the spectrum, and 10 meters is such a nice band when it's open. So Larry here in the Ham Radio Group asks, how many of you leave your DC power supplies on all the time? I've always shut mine off when I turn my HF rig off, but I've heard that you don't need to do that. Well, there are some good reasons to turn it off if you turn off your radio. And one of them, of course, is to, you turn off and unplug it to prevent power surges from going in and destroying it. Another reason as well is to save electricity. Yeah. Would you believe that a power supply that's not powering anything, yet it's still on, is still consuming electricity? It's a few watts, okay, but every few watts adds up. So I turn them off, and you have you have a lot of good reasons to do that. But some people say that you should leave it on because of the inrush current. It's going to destroy it and such like that. Maybe that's probably for a long time, but not not for a while. All right, so what are some inexpensive 10-meter mobile options? Well, they have a few good ones. I mean, if you can find one of the Radio Shack HTX 10 or HTX 100 at a Hamfest, I picked them up for as little as $50. I don't know if they're going to be available now. If you are in another country, maybe you get them at the radio rallies at the Hamfest. You can probably do that as well too. But here's a thought though: if you can pick up an all-band HF rig like a Kenwood TS440 or similar, you can get a lot more bang for your buck. I paid $250 for mine used, and it works really well. So I wouldn't really bother too much with going the 10-meter radio route. I have a video that recommends against buying that as their first radio because there's too little in that radio, and you will outgrow it very, very quickly. Right? So I just want you to get the most out of ham radio, and buying a cheap 10-meter radio is not going to really do it. Okay? And let's see here. So another question. Do I need a license to simply purchase a radio? At least here in the United States, you don't. In some other countries, it might be different. Here in the United States, to own an amateur radio, you do not need an amateur radio license or any kind of license. You do need that license to transmit. And of course, if it's a GMRS radio, you need a GMRS license. If it's an amateur radio, you need an amateur radio license. So be aware of that. In some countries, they're very strict with radio equipment. I remember in Trinidad, they really give you a lot of problems. A lot of problems. James Gardner here asks, separation of dipole and power lines other than safety in big capital letters. What are the interference issues with having a dipole antenna close to and parallel to power lines feeding the noise? Okay. So high voltage power lines could cause issues. The distribution. So let's talk about, first of all, the distribution lines that are in your neighborhood that you see on the pole. Those can cause some interference problems, especially if they have like insulators that are arcing and such like that. So you might want to get the power company to fix those, because your next stop could be the FCC, believe it or not. The FCC actually takes a dim view of some of this. So try to get it resolved with the power company. I mean, the FCC will come down on some of the power companies, by the way. They wouldn't come down on you for complaining. But generally, you could have interference, right? On the larger power lines, the big transmission lines, the ones on the big pylons, you probably won't have much interference with them because they're typically well maintained. I still don't want them on my property for several reasons, but for other reasons, you probably would you probably wouldn't have an issue with them. Okay, and let's see here. We have I feel like I have a pretty terrible call sign for CW. That's KI5 IZ, is it? IZE. So generally, for a good call sign on Morse code, you want one that's short, but you also don't want one with a lot of dots, because those tend to go by quickly and people will be asking you for repeats. And if you have one with dashes, that gives people more time in their brain to decode the Morse code. Yeah, that's a good point there. So, all right. All right, so this question is, what is a PL tone and why do I have to use it? So the PL tone, so PL is a trademark of Motorola, right? PL stands for private line. The real name for it is CTCSS, or Continuous Tone Coded Squelch System, CTCSS. And you want to, you generally have those on a repeater, not so much to keep people out the repeater, but to prevent interference. So you want to have less interference. And the way you do that is you have a CTCSS tone. So in New York City, all the repeaters had them just because the RF soup of the city was absolutely horrendous, and it's horrendous for anybody who has a radio there. Everything just basically, explodes there. So you have that, and you program that in your radio. It's probably buried in the menus, especially if you have like a Baofeng. Of course, for digital repeaters, you do have in the case of DMR, at least, you have a color code, which is equivalent to the CTCSS. So how CTCSS works, by the way, is it sends a tone very low below the normal range for audio, and then the receiver picks that up, and then the receiver will then open a squelch if it detects the proper tone. Okay, so Steve here asks, I do not have a mobile unit installed, even though I have many. My comment to the group is, garage versus antenna. Would you rather have a clean and warm vehicle or a large antenna? Seems to me you can't have both. Yeah, there have been different things that have. So on my vehicles, I've always had an antenna that I could fold down before going into the garage, or a parking deck, because if I carry my car to work, I drive to work, you need to kind of have the parking decks are very low, so you need to kind of have the antennas either removed or folded down. There is a company that actually makes a motorized folding antenna, which is pretty neat. I forgot who makes that, but there is one. And that one could solve it all. You push a button to lower the antenna. You push a button to raise the antenna. And then that will help you with these challenging garages. Right? I think Diamond made the one that folds over. So that would help you. Let's see here. All right. Getting my radio corner ready to have a panel on the wall. White box on the floor will be mounted to the wall. I think, okay, I had a friend over and he suggested I wrap the PVC conduit in a few layers of aluminum foil. Is there any benefit to that, or just trying to prevent me from making baked potatoes? Well, I don't think it really, I don't think it really makes a difference. It really doesn't, it just really doesn't. I mean, the coax is already shielded, so you're not really looking to shield it even more, right? And it's it's not gonna make a difference at all. So Steve here asks, is there any way to pass the hammer operator exam as a non-resident of the US? So the answer is you can absolutely take US amateur exams as a non-resident of the US. And it's actually easier now because you register online and you get something called an FRN, which is an FCC registration number. And you want to just register that beforehand. You can also take the exams. I wouldn't say it's online. It's remotely supervised. So what they do is they have a camera that you use your camera and you point to the room, and they have real live human volunteer examiners watching you while you take your test, and that is how you take it overseas, or you could do it online. Or even if you have a V in your country, I mean, like some countries with American presence, like Germany and Japan, I believe they have VE teams that will test you for your US license, for your FCC license. So it is something that is available. One club, like I mentioned, one club tried to refuse me to take the test because I didn't yet have a social security number when I first came to the States, and they turned me back. But now you don't really have to deal with that. You get your FCC registration number, you fill that out on the form 605 when you're applying for a license, and then that's it. Okay, so let's see some other questions. What sort of adapter can I buy to connect my Baofeng to another kind of antenna? So the Baofeng has an SMA reverse polarity, a male SMA connector, and you just look on Amazon or at your local ham radio store. You go to one that sponsors the legends, like Main Trading Company, okay? And you ask Richard Lenore for a cable that supports the reverse polarity, the small connector there. All right, let's see here. SMA connector. Right. Let's see here. I live in an HOA. So this question is, I live in an HOA, and my homeowners association does not allow me to put up antennas, but they do allow displaying the American flag. I want to get a antenna that could be disguised as the flagpole. Is this possible? As a matter of fact, yes, it's not only possible, but it's very common. You have a lot of people who use so-called flagpole antennas, where the flagpole is the antenna. Of course, hams love to be patriotic because they love this country, and you're 5'9", patriot. And finally, this question about the 43-foot vertical. So the question is, why is 43 feet so magical for a vertical antenna? Well, the answer is that it kind of could be tuned to so many nearby HF bands easily without much of an effort. So you can do that with a 43-foot. My friend Steve, WX2S, he wrote an article about expanding the capabilities, including working 80 and 160 meters on it. All right. And then let's see here. I got time for one more question. Question about a fan dipole. I'm going to make halfway fan dipole, top wire 160 meters, second wire 60 meters, approximately 85 feet. Do you think I will have interaction with any other antenna? First of all, I recommend that you always use a vertical antenna for 160, and then second of all, if you're using a fan dipole on HF, it's really not going to have much interaction. So anyway, all right, my friends. Well, that's been another episode, and this time it's Ria's Ham Shack right here on WRMI Legends. We'd like to thank the fabulous staff at WRMI, and of course the WRMI Legends for making this happen. And if you want to support them, you go on to WRMIlegends.com, and you'll find ways to support very meaningful and very nice shortwave radio. Okay, this show airs every week, every Friday at 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern on WRMI. I am your host, Ria Jairam, and to RJ. And until next time, I will see you around. Peace and 73.